for our summer feeding. So just a few housekeeping items. I probably should introduce myself. I'm Sherry Wonderson, the Division Director of the Child and Adult Nutrition Services Division. And I have Diana Webb helping me. She is one of our school nutrition program specialists. And we also have Rob and Andrea on the webinar. We're a woman down in the office, so we're all kind of pitch hitting here. That's why you are going to sit through a webinar with me at the helm today. Other housekeeping, if you could go ahead on your Zoom window and update the name to your first and last, that's really helpful to us to know who's hopping on our trainings. For this webinar, if you could go ahead and put questions in the chat, we should have lots of time to answer your questions, and sometimes it's most helpful to answer those questions as we get through the materials. So Diana is going to help me with that today. And she's also going to add the website links. Hopefully we won't have too many technical difficulties. We're still in a building renovation, so things are a little wonky. Let me know if audio, volume, anything is getting spotty, and we'll try to adjust for that. So we'll start the webinar with just a quick warm up in case people are not sure how to use the chat function. Put in the chat your favorite hobby. I'll do it too. Oh, I will. Yep. Oh, gardening, smoking meat. Rob's starting to get famous for that. Not working. I like that one. Grandma biking. Nice. Anything outdoors? Agreed. All right. And for the next question, put in the chat how many years you've operated a seamless summer program. It could be 0. It could be 14. Maybe Tolliver, maybe Dave, you should be teaching this. All right, so we've got some very experienced and some slightly experienced, but that sounds good. All right, so we will go ahead and jump right in. We've got a big agenda. We're talking about seamless summer A to Z. I just noticed Paula's note, inception of the program. I like that. So lots of people experienced in operating the seamless summer. Feel free to jump in if you've got information to share as well. All right, as you probably know, the purpose of Seamless Summer is to allow schools to provide free summer meals in low-income areas during the traditional summer vacation periods, the summer months. During the school year, kids have a very reliable source of healthy meals every single school day, and they lose that during the summer months. So Seamless Summer combines features from the school nutrition programs as well as the summer food service program. Seamless Summer is supposed to be a streamlined, kind of reduced administrative burden to help feed kids in low-income areas over the summer months. So just like the school lunch program, the SSO application has to be approved before you can operate and get reimbursement for Seamless Summer. It's nestled in the school nutrition application, but it is a separate set of sites that need to be approved. And there's lots of resources hyperlinked, and Diana will pop those into the chat if you are really interested in reading the USDA memo about Seamless Summer. So all through this webinar, we're going to talk about eligible participants. Right out the gate, we'll talk about who is an eligible participant. Children 18 years or younger are eligible, but also persons that are 19 to 21 years old that meet the state definition of having a physical or mental disability. So if you've got special ed kids that are a little bit older than 18, they are also qualified to participate in this program. Just check in the chat there. Area eligibility, we've got two major categories or two ways to qualify as an area eligible school. The first way is the most common, that's using school data. If the feeding site is located within the geographical boundaries of a school where at least 50% of the students are approved for free or reduced price meals, that qualifies as area eligible. You can find that information on the South Dakota Department of Education website under the enrollment site list, October 2022. Kind of an awkward title, but Diana should be popping that link into the chat there. A lot of people use that data. It's our October site survey data. You can pull that out of your ICANN application as well, or your ICANN, yep, ICANN application site eligibility, I think it's called. Another way to qualify is our CEP, our community eligibility provision, community eligibility provision school. Using the school level CEP claiming percentage, and keep in mind that school level, but not group claiming percentage. So that is the individual student percentage, the ISP, multiplied by 1.6. If the result of that calculation is 50% or more, then the sites within that school attendance area qualify as area eligible. And the final way, when all else fails, when at least 50% of the children enrolled at the site are approved for free or reduced price school meals, you also qualify as area eligible. Census data, if you are in an area in a census block group or census tract, if your feeding site is in one of those census block groups or census tract that has at least 50% children eligible for free or reduced price meals, you're also area eligible. There is a USDA area eligibility mapper that you can use to figure that out. So this data, if you're all experienced, you know that this data is used to input that into your site application, and it tells you whether or not you're eligible to operate different kind of site types that we'll go into in the next slide. And school and census data is valid for 5 years. So if you're a school on the edge and you sometimes flip on and off of that area eligibility, you've got 5 years. Hopefully you flip back on at some point during those five years. All right, so once you figure out if you're area eligible, you can then determine your site type. There are lots of different site types in Seamless Summer. Our most common one is an open site. So that's where any eligible participant can come and eat. This is on a first come, first serve basis. Hopefully you're planning enough food, but sometimes things happen and you get a crowd. So first come, first serve. The open sites are located within an area where at least 50% of the children are certified for free or reduced based on school or census data. And all eligible participant meals are reimbursed at the free Seamless Summer rate. Restricted open has all the same requirements as open, except the attendance of who's participating in that meal service site is limited for reasons of security, safety, or control. I keep noticing the chat, but I'm assuming Diane is going to let me know if those are questions or just links. Okay, closed enrolled sites. Those serve only an identified group of eligible children who are participating in a specific program or activity. A site may be closed enrolled if it meets one of the following criteria. Any of the school area eligibility, that would make a closed enrolled site area eligible. Or if at least 50% enrolled at the site are approved for free or reduced price meals, that also makes the site area eligible. I'm not sure if I said, but census data is included in there. And meals are reimbursed at closed enrolled at the free rate. Campsite may be residential or non-residential. We've got a lot of day camps out there. Camps must offer regularly scheduled food service as part of the program for enrolled children. The eligibility must be established for each child enrolled and tracked by their eligibility status of the free, the reduced, or the paid meals. Only meals served to free or reduced eligible children are claimed for reimbursement at the free SSO meal rates. Meals served to the paid students or the otherwise ineligible children cannot be claimed for reimbursement. So a camp has the choice whether or not to charge those ineligible or paid children for their meals. All right, migrant site. These sites primarily serve children of migrant families through the age of 18. These sites are certified by a migrant organization. Meals are served at their free rate, but site eligibility for migrant sites, that has to be determined every single year. So that one does not get to qualify for the 5 years. Sorry. Grab and Go is our newest permanent meal option that starts this school year, or this summer, pardon me, summer 2023. We just got a memo the very last day of February, so we don't have a ton of answers or information at this moment, but the Grab and Go includes a meal delivery option similar to what we saw in the COVID waiver flexibilities. In the Grab and Go model, there is also limited ability to provide either bulk meals or multiple meals at one time. A site may be open using the criteria listed in the open or the area eligibility, or it can also be closed enrolled by collecting that free and reduced eligibility. All right, so just once again, open site, the site eligibility requirements are met, that's the 50%. School data, CEP, census, meal reimbursements, free for all eligible children, serves the eligible children up to age 18 or the 19 to 21-year-olds that meet the physical or mental disability. Participants come from the community. So even children visiting from another community can come and eat at an open site in your community. So for example, if a student is staying with their grandparent for a week and they're close to your meal service site, that child can come and get a meal at your site, even though that child is not enrolled at your school. So school enrollment has got nothing to do with open feeding sites. Another example that we see occasionally, a local daycare provider may bring their children over to your meal service site to eat there. And that's okay as long as they're not also operating one of our other child nutrition programs like the Child and Adult Care Food Program, they cannot claim your meal for reimbursement at their site. So you'll just want to have a little conversation to see, are they on another one of our programs? Do they know they can't claim those meals? If they're not claiming the meals, come on in, have a meal. And you can reach out to your local daycares to let them know, hey, I'm gonna be providing this service. Can you bring your kiddos to the meal service location? All right, and closed enrolled. These two are most common, the open and the closed enrolled. So closed enrolled serves only an identified group of eligible children participating in that specific program or activity. Meals are reimbursed at the free school lunch meal rate for all attending children when they meet that area eligibility requirement, using school data or census data, or when at least 50% of the children enrolled at that feeding site are approved for free and reduced price meals. Once they hit that 50%, then everybody's for free, but you have to keep that documentation. A closed enrolled site that doesn't meet one of those criteria is not eligible to participate unless it qualifies as a day camp. So keep that in mind if you're on the edge of that for a closed enrolled. And then just a note about summer school. Summer school is not allowed to be a closed enrolled site under Seamless Summer. Rather, schools operating a formal summer school should just contact CANS and extend their normal school lunch application to cover that summer school. So it's just an extension of your school lunch program or an extension of your school breakfast program. And only those children registered to attend that summer school can participate then in the meal service. And those meals, just like in normal school, they're claimed at the free, the reduced, or paid eligibility, student eligibility rate. So this summer school is not a free meal or an open feeding site. If anybody has questions, feel free to ask them. All right. We briefly touched on the fact that grab and go meals are new this year. So here's a little bit more information. It is permanent. There's been some demonstration projects happening for years and years, and they went really well. The COVID waivers was kind of an intense demonstration to see how grab and go meal sites work. And at least in South Dakota, it seemed to be a very good and helpful way to reach the families who might not be able to drive from way out in the rural countryside into town for a meal and then back every single day. So I don't have this memorized, so I'll have to read a little bit of it. Grab and go meal sites are only available for eligible rural area sites that have no congregate meal service options. So right now the guidance is if you're running an open enrolled, let's say, or a closed enrolled meal service site where the kids are coming to eat, they eat and then they go home, you cannot also use that site as a grab and go. It has to be one or the other. The USDA guidance right now says that grab and go meal sites should not replace normal congregate meal service, but these are new. We just, like I said, got the memo end of February. There's not a ton of guidance. We don't have regulation right now. That's coming over this next winter. They plan to issue those regs. So bear with us a little bit as we kind of wade through what does this really mean, and how far can we push those limits while still staying on the rules.
There is a question in the chat, Sherry. It says we have added snow makeup days to the end of school. What do I need to do?
That is a great question. if you better check, schools should probably check their ICANN application, their ICANN application dates of operation. And I'm going to need one of the school lunch people to jump in to tell me if that's a sponsor or a site thing. But you'll want to make sure that the dates that you originally put in there are going to cover the additional dates that you're going to have to add to make up for snow days.
So yeah, sponsor application has the end dates, but they'd want to check their site app too, because they have months of operation in there as well.
Good tip. So yes, the dates of operation are in the sponsor, but months. So if you're already planning to feed in May, that's already checked. But if you do start having to serve into June, you'll have to go in there and select that June month. So fabulous question. Back to grab and go. So children can only be served grab and go style at a grab and go meal site. The meals in an area eligible site would qualify for grab and go, but also meals at a closed enroll site that maybe don't meet area eligibility requirements. Those areas can also look into grab and go, which is, I think, great. So in order to do that second one, the closed enrolled, each individual child's eligibility is collected, and only the meals served to free and reduced price children can be claimed at the free rate. No paid meals can be claimed for reimbursement in summer. Just like we saw in COVID, there is an increased concern with the food safety, the health of the food, making sure both at the grab and go meal service, but also what the families are going to do with that food once they receive it. So all meals have to meet state health and safety and sanitation standards, and all of the other seamless summer program requirements apply to these grab and go sites as well. So we are having a town hall meeting next week on March 22nd, where we will provide additional information on the grab and go meal service type. Since it's new, we are still working on those resources and trying to figure out how we're going to do that application in ICANN. So hopefully we're looking at just a simple supplement, nothing major. So now Diana's going to open a poll. It's not a scientific poll. It's not going to lock you into anything. I'm looking for a little bit of information about the grab and go option. So anything you care to share, if we can get the poll up. And maybe Diane is having some problems. Do you want me to give it a try? Oh, there it is. All right, we'll give you just a few minutes to go ahead and fill out the poll. So I'll just keep on kind of rambling while people are filling out the questions. They're a little wordy, so my apologies for that. But we are just wondering if this is good news to schools. Is it too late in the planning process to shift gears to move to a grab and go? part of me thinks that's ridiculous. During COVID, people literally overnight kind of shifted their model, but that was slightly different motivation. So we're just really curious how our schools will react to grab and go. Will it be utilized, or is it really not very popular? So we'll go ahead and maybe give it 10 more seconds, Diana, and we can end the poll. Okay, Diana is sharing the results of the poll, so we don't have a ton of people on this webinar today, but it looks like it's kind of a split between yes and no. Not sure about it, need some more information. So we'll see what the town hall has to say, and hopefully for the sites that and the schools that have those long bus rides during the school year, or who have historically low turnout at their rural meal sites, maybe this is a better option for them. Okay, if you want to stop sharing, and we'll just move right along to mobile feeding sites. So in a mobile feeding model, the meals are brought to the children rather than requiring the children to travel to a meal site. Sponsors deliver meals on a route. So we approve the route. Each stop is an approved site within a community. If they're an open feeding site, then all of those sites would have to meet that area eligibility requirement. Meal service has to take place on approved days, and the sponsor must serve reimbursable meals during those approved meal service times. So you're hearing the same requirements, it's just on wheels as opposed to stationary. Again, with a mobile food site, we pay a little extra attention to food safety to make sure that when you're transporting that quantity of food around a route, is it as safe at the end of it as it is at the beginning of it. And a site supervisor has to be present at each meal. Same requirements as SSO. And sponsor is required to make arrangements for meal service operations if there's bad weather, if there's storms or something. You do need to have another plan on where those meal service locations will be. Excessive heat. We frequently experience excessive heat during our summer feeding program. There is a pre-approval process you can go through to serve those meals on those excessive heat days as a grab and go non-congregate feeding style, when the weather is just too hot for people to come and eat meals in that crazy hot temperature. So it applies to outdoor sites. Prior approval is required, and the form that's needed for the prior approval can be found in the CAN's SMP application in those download forms. And with everything else, there's a USDA memo that has all of the requirements and rules for excessive heat. Oh, okay, we are into meal types. So we're changing gears from sites, how they become eligible for seamless summer. So now we're going to talk about the meal requirements. We've got specific meal types that are allowed during seamless summer. Breakfast has to be served in the morning hours. These rules are are exactly identical to the school lunch program. So breakfast in the morning, lunch has to be offered between 10 and 2 p.m. And if anyone needs some kind of accommodation, they just need state agency approval in their ICANN app to do anything before or after before 10 a.m. after 2 p.m. Snacks just must be evenly spaced between the other meals, and supper must start before 7 p.m. and end by 8 p.m. In all of the meal service types, the meals must be eaten on site. That is the requirement, except for grab and go sites, or if you have an excessive heat pre-approval. Meal options, and this applies to open or closed enrolled. Maximum of 2 meals or a meal and a snack can be offered and claimed each day. So a lunch and breakfast, a lunch and 1 snack, a breakfast and a snack, 1 snack and supper, but not lunch and supper. That won't be approved in the same day. And the school lunch meal patterns, we'll look at those real quick. And just like in the school lunch program, second meals are not reimbursable. That is something, if you're a site that sometimes operates as summer food service program, those rules are slightly different than the school nutrition programs, National School Lunch and Breakfast. There are no reimbursable second meals. Seconds have to be paid for just like the National School Lunch and Breakfast program. And supper is claimed at the lunch seamless summer reimbursement rate. Meal counts are required at the point of service, just as you're serving the reimbursable meal to the child. So not doing it at the beginning when you're cooking the food and expecting 50 kids to come out. That's not a point of sale, point of service meal count. You have to do it when you're handing that child a reimbursable meal. So we strongly suggest using the one on the slide right now. This is from our summer food service program. This form can be used for open sites. This form cannot be used for closed enrolled sites. So this form, it tracks what the site name is, what the meal type it is, address, who's the supervisor, a lot of good information. You track the meals, reimbursable first meals served to each children. If you do serve second meals, we just heard those have to come at a charge, but you keep track of those. And then we keep track of adult meals as well. And of course, we talked about seconds not being reimbursable, but adults obviously are also not reimbursable. So if you're a closed enrolled site, you have to do those meal counts by student name because it is that closed enrolled, that targeted group of kids. You don't have people out in the general community coming in to that program. And there is a link to find this meal count form sheet. It is on page 187 of our SFSP admin guide. Well, it's the USDA admin guidebook. And if you can't find it, just shoot us an email and we'll send you a copy. Meal patterns are exactly the same as the school year. So hopefully you guys are all pros at school lunch, school breakfast. Maybe you're adding a seamless summer after school snack and you're not so firm on those rules. But we do have all of that information posted on the website. Production records are required, and that's a daily requirement for every meal that you're receiving reimbursement for. Whatever production record you're using during the school year, you will continue using for the summer months. There's a tiny little exception if you're using one of the grade group allowances, but basically everybody should be using what they've already gotten approval for in their school year application. And if you want to use something else, if you need to use something else, then that does need to be approved by CANS and alternate production records. Just you submit those for pre-approval before your meal service date starts so that we have a little bit of time to work through that approval process. And all of our production records, several variations can be found on the CANS school nutrition website. Same rules apply for breakfast. Obviously, there is a slightly different production record, but same rules at breakfast. So I mentioned that one little flexibility, one exception to the rule. The open site at lunch can use a grade K to 8 or 9 to 12, depending on what kind of population you're serving, what kind of children are attending your open meal site. So that is something you select with an addendum, and you just have to do a little justification on why you're choosing this flexibility as opposed to using what you're normally doing during the school year. I don't think most people have challenges with that. Breakfast K-12 is normally allowed, and a lot of schools, particularly the K-12 online one building, are already using that meal service or that meal planning type age group. So there's no paperwork with that one. It's just the lunch if you're deviating from your normal meal service age grade groups. And then closed enrolled, whatever you're serving, whatever your enrolled group of kiddos are, their age grade group, you use that production record. You use that meal pattern based on the age grade group that are attending that closed enrolled activity. I haven't had to talk about meal patterns in a few years, so goodness gracious. Menu planning at breakfast, same meal pattern at school breakfast. Same meal pattern as during the school year as seamless summer, 0 changes unless you're modifying grade groups. And we do have the meal pattern requirements in that memo hyperlink that's posted, but I like the CANS one that Diana is going to hopefully pop in the chat there. Lunch, same deal, same meal pattern that you're using during the school year, unless you're getting that approved addendum, and you just follow those age grade group requirements. Same resources as breakfast. And snack. Snack is super low key. The production record for snack is the same one as the breakfast production record. So if you're using the state prototype, state standard, breakfast and snack are one and the same as far as the paperwork goes. But snack is simply serving 2 components from any of the 5 components. So serving a meat alternate and a grain and a fruit and a vegetable and a milk, any combination of those. The only thing that can't be served together for a reimbursable snack is milk and juice. You cannot serve milk and 100% juice and get a reimbursable snack. 100% liquids, I don't know if that would make for a happy snack time anyways. So there is a link that Diana is putting in the chat with after school snack requirements. And I'm sorry, that does say 2 food items. It is components, 2 components from any of the 5 components. Milk requirements are identical to the school year. Are you bored with me saying that? I sure am. So unflavored or flavored, fat-free, low-fat milk. Those are the choices. Lactose reduced or lactose free, you always have the option to serve those as fat-free or low-fat. The requirement remains in Seamless Summer that you offer 2 choices at breakfast and at lunch. So examples of 2 choices are maybe a low-fat and a fat-free unflavored milk, or a flavored fat-free and an unflavored fat-free, or any combination of those. It just can't be one. You can't give the children just one choice of milk. That's no choice. All right, offer versus serve, allowed but not required. the key is to have the site staff trained to identify a reimbursable meal. Same as the school year. The full meal must be offered to every child, and the child just has to take at least 3 of those components. 2 of those 3 must be the full serving size, and the 1 must be at least a half cup fruit or vegetable, or fruit and or vegetable. Those are the same requirements as school lunch. If you need it repeated, we do the 5 components. 3 are selected by the child, 2 are full components, and 1 is a half cup fruit or vegetable at lunch. Offer versus serve at breakfast. Again, that's the food items. So 4 food items are offered, 3 have to be selected by the child, 2 have to be full servings, and 1 has to be that half cup fruit or vegetable, or fruit and vegetable. I can't stress enough that offer versus serve is not what you're putting on your menu plan. The menu plan has to meet the meal pattern requirements for the age grade group that you're serving. So don't just put down 3 components for lunch or 3 food items at breakfast if that's what you're thinking offer versus serve allows. That is not correct. That is not a reimbursable meal. You have to meet the component requirements at breakfast and at lunch. So menu plan meets those meal pattern requirements. Offer versus serve only happens in the meal service line. The signage requirements that are required during the school year, also required during seamless summer. Menus just have to be presented to your participants in a manner that's understandable to the age grade that you're serving. It has to be posted at the meal service site. And if you're using offer versus serve, you have to add that minimum food selection at the feeding site. So there's an example from our friends in Wisconsin of a lunch meal sign that here's the lunch, here's the minimum requirement under offer versus serve. But hey, for a nutritious meal, take all 5. That's as complicated as it has to be. Adult meals. Once okay, just check in to make sure that chat doesn't have questions. Adult meals, same as the school lunch. Adult meals are not program meals. At Seamless Summer, all children have to be fed first before adults. Schools have the choice whether or not to allow adult meal sales. A lot of sites don't want to deal with cash transactions for security purposes. So there's not usually an adult meal sale happening at a lot of the sites that we see in South Dakota, and that's okay. It's totally 100% up to the school's discretion whether or not to allow it. So with adult meals, we do have 2 different kinds of adult meals though. We've got program and we've got non-program. So our program adults are the ones that are actually working with the Seamless Summer option. Those adults can receive a free meal when they're working. So if they're cooking, if they're serving, if they're doing meal counts, those are program adults. Your program can absorb the cost of their meals as an allowable cost. Non-program adults meals, that's everybody else who's not working the Seamless Summer program. So adult meals have to be sold at a price that covers the cost of the meal. You have to have that documentation that there's income that's coming from outside the school food service account. If you want to make the choice of allowing adult meals, there's just a little bit more to it. Meal counts have to be taken separately for eligible children first meals, program adults, and adult meals. there's a spot for that, all of that on that template that I shared. And if you do want to offer adult non-program meals, sell adult non-program meals, the memo, CANS memo 223-1 that you use during the school year to set adult meal prices, that's still what you will use for Seamless Summer. All right, off-site meals, commonly known as field trips. If a site is taking a field trip and you want reimbursable meals, you do not need to notify us. That's another difference between the summer food service program. We don't need to be notified. There's no pre-approval. Do your field trip. As long as production records are completed, meal counts are taken at the point of sale, and that original open meal service site has to remain open for anyone not participating in the field trip. On-site monitoring, very similar to what the on-site monitoring done during the school year. That has to happen at least once during program operation. We strongly recommend doing that the first 3 weeks of the site operation. So opening your Seamless Summer program, getting this monitoring done within the first 3 weeks. Hopefully by the first week, you've worked out the kinks. By week 2, week 3, you're doing what you're doing. And you want to make sure to catch any issues early. So you do submit in your application a planned date that you're doing that on-site monitoring. Do your best to stick with that date. If you're a day or so off, not a big deal, but if you're a month off, please go ahead and amend that in your application, change it to the date you were actually able to do it. Things happen. It's a recommendation, not a requirement. Just do an on-site monitoring. That is the requirement. And that form can be found in the ICANN S&P application in download forms. On-site monitoring, because it's a requirement, it looks at all of the key parts of our program. So things like menu planning, meal counts and claiming, production records, civil rights. Are you keeping the records from your point of sale, or are you throwing them away? Sanitation, food safety. The SOPs that you have during the school year are still applying during your Seamless Summer. Reimbursements, same as the school rates. So they do change in July. So Seamless Summer is one of the programs when you don't end the summer with the same reimbursement rate that you start out with. So whatever the approved school lunch, school breakfast, after school snack rates are, that's what Seamless Summer will use for the free. You submit those claims in your ICANN S&P application, very similar to school lunch and breakfast. I feel like you guys already know this because so many people opted into Seamless Summer during the waivers, but there were a few schools who couldn't quite get it right between the school lunch claim and the Seamless Summer claim. There are 2 different options in the ICANN claim section. So make sure you're using the Seamless Summer. If your app is filled out right, you shouldn't be able to get into school lunch. Please don't combine the claim months. Claims are due the 10th day of the month following operation. So like June's claim, it should be submitted by July 10th for prompt payment. Record keeping requirements. Can you guess what record keeping requirements are? Same as the normal school lunch year. 3 years past the current year or longer if an audit is open. So we know ICANN keeps track of your application, your claims, but everything that you're doing at the school, at your site, all of that documentation should be maintained with your record keeping requirements, on-site monitoring, the point of sale meal counts taken at your site, those need to be kept, retained. Please don't throw those away once you put them into an Excel spreadsheet or some system. Those point of sale meal counts are what we're going to look at when we come and do our review. And the only difference, the only exception to the 3 years plus the current year is the SOP temp logs. Those are only required to be kept for 6 months after the month is ended. Program reviews and inevitability with our programs. We're going to come out and visit and say hello. We do SSO reviews the year after you get your administrative review for school lunch, school breakfast program. The vast majority of them happen that way. We follow the National School Lunch, School Breakfast regulations, as well as the guidance on seamless summer. We review any site that's new during the first summer of operation. We review sites that receive complaints. And we also do follow-up reviews if, for some reason, either on a normal review or a seamless summer review, we have significant or repeated critical or general program violations. We're nearing the end. This has been a marathon. I hope it hasn't been terribly boring for you. Here's the regulation and the guidance. We've got lots of little special things that are allowed in seamless summer that's not necessarily allowed in the school lunch program. All right, let's talk about the ICANN application. So you will go into your school nutrition ICANN application, and at the bottom, again, program specialists, keep me honest here, at the bottom in the sites, that's where the seamless summer option happens. I don't think there's anything to do in the sponsor application. I'm going to take a dramatic pause to let one of the program specialists correct me if that's wrong.
I think that's correct. The only thing I'm not sure about is if you do have to extend the end date in the sponsor app. I'm thinking you might need to, but that's the only thing I can think about.
Andrea, your thoughts?
She had to fall off. Her headphones died on her.
Okay, all right, thank you. All right, yes, so in the S&P, definitely in the site apps, and maybe those dates of operation in the sponsor application. We have an ICANN user manual specifically for seamless summer. The quirky thing about our ICANN system is if you do things out of sequence, it makes life a little bit more difficult. So we really encourage our schools to use the manual and kind of walk through how that's laid out. If you do that, you will not waste any of your time filling out checklists that don't apply or making any extra work to get rid of sites or get rid of oopsie daisies. So pull out that manual, even if you're an old pro, at least the sequence of steps, follow that. That's posted on our CANS website. If you need somebody else or different to get into your ICANN app for the seamless summer, make sure you're filling out that ICANN user ID request form. That usually is a pretty quick process, but sometimes it takes a little bit to get the right signatures. So let's take a peek at two very common application sections that just are a little confusing that we usually have to follow back up with schools about. So I mentioned earlier, open sites are the most common site in our program. This is a snippet of how we determine the area eligibility of an open site. So if you're an open site and qualify for area eligibility using school data, that's what's on the screen right now. Please complete the qualified by using the selection that's the % free and reduced approved, school data. Again, that's area eligibility using any of that school data. That's what you'll select. And then you will, in that drop-down box, select the site, the school that you're using. No, You will select the meal service site for Seamless Summer. And if you're using another site in your district, complete that eligible sponsor agreement number and eligible site ID. So that helps us link the meal service site to the October data that you're using. And these are snippets right out of the ICANN manual, I believe. So it's in there if you're not quite following. Another complex one is if you're operating a closed enrolled site. And we see this mostly at colony schools, but with Grab and Go, we're not sure if this will become more popular with the home deliveries or targeted populations of that Grab and Go. So here on the screen, you'll see a snippet, income eligibility forms are, you will select on file, and then you complete the projected number of children enrolled, the number of eligible free and reduced meals that you expect to claim, and just a reminder, no paid meals can be claimed in Seamless Summer if you're not approved for area eligibility. So talk with your program specialist if you're not sure. That's why we're here to help. We're almost at the end, I promise. Next steps. So you can begin working on your Seamless Summer application now. Please do not touch the sites that are labeled UC. Those are specifically for using during the COVID waivers, and we don't have any waivers in Seamless Summer anymore. So just don't touch them. If you make a mistake, it's not the end of the world, but do your best not to touch any site labeled UC. If you need new sites, if you need to adjust old sites, let us know, send an email to DOE School Lunch with your updated or new info, and we'll get those added. Applications are due May 29th, except if you're operating before then, your app has to be approved before you operate Seamless Summer, before you actually begin serving meals. So we have just a few more slides here. Keeping up with CANs, we communicate through a lot of different methods. This is just a quick reminder of some of those methods. We do so much communication by email. We send a weekly or a bi-weekly CANs news email. All of the vital information that you need, what's going on, what's new, what's happening, if there's problems, everything seems to be going into this CANs news email. So we pull the email list from your ICANN sponsor application for the authorized rep, the food service director, the claim rep, and the second contact. All of those contacts go into our email list. So the best way to get on our email list and stay on it is to be one of those contacts listed in your application. We also pull business managers from the SD education directory, just because business managers do so much with our programs. And finally, if you're not one of those contacts and you'd still like to get on our email list, just shoot us an email and we'll manually add you. You might have to, at the end of the year for the next school year, remind us that you want to get those emails and send us another request. I mentioned a few times Grab and Go Town Hall. That's March 22nd at 2:30 p.m. Central, 1:30 p.m. Mountain Time. That is our normal Thursday Zoom meeting. So if you come to our check-in, if you come to our Zoom, we try to use a standard Zoom link. That's it. We're going to go into detail, lots of detail on the USDA non-congregate grab and go meal option. And that includes that home meal delivery, if that's something you wish to look into further or are just curious about if it could work at your school. We look forward to seeing you there and answering questions. Our next check-in with CANs is April 6th. In April, if you are not aware, the USDA released new proposed rules, revisions to meal patterns consistent with the 2020 dietary guidelines for Americans. These are some very dramatic proposed rules that schools should look at early and should, if you're interested, submit comments before the comment period closes on April 10th. One of the proposed rules is to no longer allow flavored milk at the younger grades. And the feds are soliciting input. Is that a good idea? Is that a bad idea? I don't know that it would be so popular in South Dakota. So if you have some strong opinions on the meal pattern requirements, please take a look. There's some very easy comparison charts that just break down what the rule is and what the proposed is going to become. Let's see. Another one that's in there is the tightening up of the sodium requirements at both breakfast and lunch. So have these on your radar. We really encourage schools to go and look at that and submit comments. So that's going to be the focus of our next check-in with cans. We've got Crash Course with Cans, March 23rd. We're going to talk about community eligibility provision reporting. April 20th, we're going to talk about non-program foods, basics, and more. Did you know South Dakota Department of Agriculture and Natural Resources has some farm to school grant funding available? It's $5,000. If you're on the school lunch program, you automatically qualify. It's a very simple app. They're giving away those grants until the funding is exhausted, or May 1st, actually. It looks like May 1st is the application due date. And phew, it gets really hot in this room when the door is closed, so I'm ready for a quick run outside. Thank you so much for joining us. I don't know, Diana, do we have any questions, or does anybody have any questions and wants to unmute or pop them in the chat real quick?
I did get a message from Andrea regarding the sponsor app days of operation, and I stuck it in the chat. It just says sponsor app days of operation is not tied to your SSO application.
Excellent. So not a question, a statement. Okay.
Well, yeah, statement. Whatever.
No, that's okay.
Period, question mark.
We're in the same room, so I have a little bit of an echo with her talking versus what's coming through in the thingy. So any other questions or thoughts or challenges that we can help you out with at any point in the doing your application or getting planning done, getting the program started? Give our office a call, shoot an email to us. We do our best to respond to that DOE school lunch within the same day or even faster. And if you don't have questions or anything, don't forget, you can use this training as professional standards training credit. There's a slide that you can print off once we get this posted on the website. So thank you so much for your time. I hope the long time folks got something out of this. Maybe learned a new tidbit or something. And we really, really appreciate your time. Seamless summer is so important. And we would like to continue seeing some of the reach that we saw during COVID, if at all possible.
We do have a question in the chat, Sherry, from Danielle. It says, we operate Colony as closed site SSO. Can I count the younger children eating like 12 months to 18, correct? I'm reading that right.
That is a fantastic question. So if your closed enrolled site meets one of those, I'm scrolling back, close your eyes if you get seasick, meets one of those area eligibility criteria, then you can have enrolled participants that are not school age. Over 50% is reduced. So yes, if you're meeting that 50% of the children enrolled at the site are approved for free and reduced price meals, then everyone at your closed enrolled site can eat a free meal. Good question. Hard question. All right, any other questions? If not, I think, I'm not sure how we're doing on time. Hopefully we didn't run over time. But really, thank you so much for joining in. We appreciate your efforts to continue feeding into the summer months. Thanks, everybody.